Welcome into this special edition of the Fast Lane. Trey Lyle here with you, previewing Liberty versus ODU, and I am joined by Reese Becker of DullesDistrict. He's the ODU beat writer there. He's also a staff writer for VAPreps, as well as the lead scout for Prep Red Zone. So he keeps himself very busy in the football world. Don't forget, he's an award winner as well with the Football Writers Association as well. So, Reese, thanks so much for joining me. Let's dive right into this. And this is a very interesting matchup. Obviously, Liberty coming in as the heavy favorites, the most recent successful team, I like to say, among the best of the rest in Virginia. Obviously, the top two programs historically being Virginia Tech and UVA. And something I want to touch on is this battle for the third program in the state, which is very important from, obviously, as you know, a recruiting angle. How important of a dynamic is it in this type of game where you kind of ODU and Liberty could be competing for very similar recruits within the state of Virginia?
Well, I think it's pretty important. We have, I know there's some recruits visiting Liberty this weekend for the ODU game that are also guys ODU's offered. So, those kids might be coming to ODU games later this year. It's extremely important, yeah. I mean, because, you have a kid who, say you have a kid who's high on both teams and he visits Liberty this week, visits ODU next week, and, say Liberty wins this weekend. He's like, well, I just saw Liberty beat ODU. So it's, it could be very important, but it also could have no impact. It's all up to the individual kid, and what the individual kid, prioritizes and what he's looking for in a program. So it could have impact. It could not. Don't forget JMU is also up there for the third program in the state.
Yeah, I was going to throw them in as well. Obviously, being the FCS powerhouse that they are and their connections to possible Group of Five realignment, kind of those three teams, I would say, are most likely. You have Richmond, obviously William and Mary in there as well, but those three kind of outside of the powerhouses that are Virginia Tech and UVA, even though, you could argue Liberty might be a better team than those two at this point with the talent they have on the field. It's just historically, you can't argue that. Going to the game itself, it begins and ends, if you're ODU, to have a shot in this game. I'm not going to say stop because he's too good, but slowing down Malik Willis. Obviously, I guess the only comparison for ODU this year is Sam Hartman, who is a really solid quarterback for Wake Forest. He was 18 to 27, 188 yards and 3 touchdowns through the air. I mean, he had a pretty great performance. He also was able to run the ball a little bit, but not as effective as probably Malik will. How big of a challenge is this for the Monarchs?
Now, going back to the Hartman deal, don't forget that was ODU's first game in 2 years. A lot of kinks worked out. This Malik Willis deal, I mean, he's a dynamic quarterback. Coach Ronnie said in his press conference this weekend, he's a great athlete. We're not going to see a lot of athletes like him. So it helps having guys on roster who can emulate him. Stone Smart is a good dual threat quarterback, but you can't really prepare for Malik Willis because there's not anyone else out there like him. ODU is going to see N'Kosi Perry at FAU later this year. And that's probably the best quarterback we're going to see in conference, that compares to Malik. But I think for ODU, it starts with the defensive line. Amori Morrison's played great this year. Freshman, has 4 sacks this year, 2 in each game. Really coming on strong. And then Marcus Haynes, he's been there for a while at defensive end linebacker where they want to line him up. I think it starts in the trenches on both sides there for ODU. But yeah, you don't stop Malik Willis. You just hope to contain him.
Yeah, I think you touched on here. And then obviously ODU from an offensive point of view, a little bit of a quarterback rotation. You have DJ Mack, obviously probably, entrenched as the guy there, the transfer from UCF. What have you seen from the quarterbacks this season? Obviously, Mack kind of, I don't want to say headlining the group, but this is a group that has a couple of talented players in it.
Yeah, there's no quarterback rotation. DJ Mack is a starter. He's going to start the game. He's going to play as much of the game as Ronnie wants. If it gets too bad, they might put Hayden in. Hayden Wolf is. But yeah, DJ Mack is a starter, and rightfully so. He played amazing last week. Kind of struggling against Wake Forest, but it was the first game for this team in 2 years. Don't put too much stock into that Wake Forest game.
You touched on it, and this is a part I want to dive into. Obviously, Mac, a lot of experience in big games. This was the guy who had to replace. It feels like years ago, but obviously McKenzie Milton now at Florida State. But this was the guy who replaced McKenzie Milton against LSU in a Fiesta Bowl and played pretty well. And like you mentioned, deservingly so to be the starter. First game in 2 years. This is another big. Maybe this is their hardest opponent given the talent that is on that Liberty sideline.
I would say so.
And the coaching that's there. What do you want to see first? Let's just dive into the offense. What do you want to see from the offense in this game after their improvements, obviously against a lesser opponent in Hampton than from that Wake Forest game?
Hampton's a very good FCS team. Of course, they don't have the athletes an Old Dominion would. I think what I would want to see, and what I know the coaching staff wants to see, is DJ has to be as good as he was last week. He can't play like he did against Wake Forest. You can never play like you did against Wake Forest. He gained some of that confidence back last week, though. The running game, school single game rushing record last time out against Hampton for the running game. John Luke Peaker, the freshman, had 141 yards last game. You're going to want to see production like that. And last game, it was really DJ Mack spreading the ball around. I think 6 or 7 guys got catches, and you're getting some of these young guys like Jordan Bly, Isaiah Page, you're getting them reps early in the year like this, and it can only do wonders for them. So I think what you need to see is, DJ Mack performs good. The running game helps him out. This is a very experienced line. You looked up and down this line, there's Power 5 transfers, there's Nick Saliveri, there's Isaac Weaver, who might be one of the best offensive linemen in the country. He's been there for forever. He's a 6-year senior. Started until a billion games for him, so I think it all starts up front, and they're going to go as DJ Mack goes, but the running game can be very important also.
And you touched on it a little bit. Elijah Davis is, he's only has 178 yards, a touchdown this year. Performed well against Hampton, as you mentioned. And that's a key. But this is a really good Liberty defense with a really good front, an experienced front. How important is the battle? I feel like I'm being very cliche here, but this game is going to be won or lost in the trenches. And how important is that against a very, very good Liberty front?
There is a reason I didn't comment on Elijah Davis. I'm not going to comment on that. They do not give out injury updates. So I'm not going to comment on whether or not he's starting or playing because I personally don't know. That's why I said John Luke Peaker. Blake Watson, Elijah Davis. Hopefully for ODU, Elijah Davis can go. If not, it's going to be Blake Watson and John Luke Peaker. The battle up front. Every game is won and lost in the trenches. Every game boils down to how you do in the trenches. Because if you don't give your quarterback time, and if your offensive line can't hold up to give your quarterback time to throw, he's rushed and he makes bad throws. But I think the trenches obviously is the most important part. A very experienced Liberty defensive line versus a very experienced ODU offensive line, and a less experienced ODU defensive line versus what I can see is a very experienced Liberty offensive line. I've read the pregame notes. I have them beside me actually. So I think for ODU the offensive line defensive line matchup is good, but the defensive line for ODU going against Liberty's offensive line, I think those young guys are gonna have to find ways to outsmart Liberty's offensive line to get to the backfield. Again, Maury Morrison has 4 sacks in 2 games. This kid's a freshman who wasn't all that highly touted coming out of high school. He was, a guy who had offers, a 3-star linebacker or defensive line, I believe. But yeah, it's going to start up front. It's going to start up front on both sides of the ball.
Yeah, of course. Now moving to the other side, we touched on in the beginning, slowing down Malik Willis. And what do you want to see from this defensive line? Obviously, I know this is a 2-year gap, but that you go back to this Wake Forest game, which you kind of throw out the window a little bit. But a couple of guys you want to see as just kind of be able to contain him and step up in this type of game where you're facing a top 5, top 10 quarterback in the country
Mhm.
who's going to probably play on Sundays.
Yeah, I think when you're playing a guy like Malik, you want to have your defensive backs have extremely sound coverage to where it forces Malik to run. Because if you can force Malik to run, and you have, 4 in coverage, 7 guys on the field who can get to him. I think the most important thing is to be good coverage, though. It's the same thing as if you're playing Lamar Jackson, If you don't let him throw and you force him to run, you can anticipate him running. But I think if you're ODU, what you want to look at is getting a lot of quarterback hurries. You want to take advantage of any mistakes Malik might make. I watched some of the game against Troy last week. It looked like they were able to slow Malik down a little bit. So I think there's a game plan there. But ultimately, I think it's coming down to the front 4 and getting pressure on Malik and forcing him to roll out of the pocket. Because you force him out of the pocket, he can beat you with his legs. But if your coverage is sound downfield, then anything can happen. But yeah, the front 4. The front 4 is why I look forward to be, the point of attack, getting in the backfield a lot.
And obviously, ODU has been famed to pull off this type of upset before. Obviously, this game in Lynchburg on the road, but ODU's been this type of underdog before, even to a bigger scale against, obviously as a Virginia Tech grad, I remember it. So give me just like 2 to 3 keys you think would be, you want to see from, in that first quarter, in that first half, that you feel like, all right, ODU's in this game and they have a shot to actually win this.
On both sides of the ball or just defense?
Whatever you'd like. Okay.
So I think the first drive, you have to get a touchdown. I don't think you're going to be able to match touchdowns or field goals in this game. So first drive, get out the gates early, get a touchdown. For the rest of the first quarter, you want to see DJ Mack make sound decisions. And you want to see the defense. I think if the defense can hold Malik to 25 yards rushing per quarter, then you're doing pretty good. As long as he's not killing you in the air. Just sound defense, get out to a good start, and then, quarterback play needs to be great. And make sure the offensive line, holds up in the margin. The thing about that Virginia Tech upset, because that was actually my first college football game that I ever covered. That was at home. That was a different environment. And Tech was a 13th ranked team at that time. It was a 28 points spread, I think it was that game. It's 24.5, 26.5 points. Not quite the insurmountable foe Virginia Tech was. But yeah, get out. The most important thing is get out of the gates fast for ODU.
Well, Reese, I want to thank you so much for joining me, hopping on this special edition of the Fast Lane. But before I let you go, it's give me your thoughts on the game. Obviously, you kind of mentioned the line, 26 points over under 54.5. Do you think ODU has a chance to keep it close and we're looking at an exciting game in the fourth quarter, or could it be something where, Liberty dominates? They obviously were a little slow offensively against Troy, but are basically able to dominate in this game just off of, this is a talented team that's on a run of its life in terms of just its history and its program.
Yeah. If ODU gets out to a fast start and can match touchdown for touchdown, I think it's close going in the fourth quarter. But yeah, as a Liberty fan, the game against Troy would scare me. Because that very well could have been a loss. And I haven't watched the entire game tape. I've watched maybe 10 plays, 15 plays. But yeah, I think if ODU comes out strong and comes out, touchdown for touchdown, as long as they keep up, matching Liberty scoring, you can't trade touchdown for field goal. But I think they get out the gates early. And going back to the Tech upset, now almost 3 years to the day, what ODU did a good job of was matching touchdown for touchdown. And when they got the advantage of Hendon Hooker, I believe it was, starting that game, going down.
Josh Jackson, actually. That's
Josh
how old.
Jackson, that's right.
Don't
That's
worry.
right.
I am. That was my senior year of college, so I feel a little old right now, Reese.
Well, it's only been 3 years, man. Come on.
Time's flying.
Time's a fluid concept. Yeah, the thing with that game was once the injury occurred, you could sense it shifting ODU's way. It was already kind of doing that because I'm sure you remember they pressured Josh a lot that game. I think you need a similar game plan to that to do this upset this time.
Obviously, no injury.
No, but the injury, I'm not going to say it gave ODU the win, but it certainly, helped them break the door down a little bit. And then the inconsistencies, from Josh Jackson that game, and from I believe it was Ryan Willis who came in for him when he went down. The inconsistencies, the turnovers, the penalties. I'm sure you remember there are a good amount of penalties on Tech Day. Just take advantage of everything they give you. If Malik makes a mistake, throws a pick, whatnot, fumbles, take advantage of that. Points off of turnovers is going to be another big thing for ODU here.
Well, Reese, I want to thank you so much for joining me. How can Flames fans get some more content from you to get the ODU side of the game? Also, you're very connected to the high school scene, definitely, especially in that 757 area. And for any fan in Virginia that loves college football, that's a very fertile recruiting market. So how can listeners get more content from you and your award-winning content?
Yeah, for anyone out there who has a son in high school who's looking to recruiting, we're doing recruiting Q&As on my Twitter Spaces every Wednesday now. Kids, parents, coaches are welcome to join that. Prep Red Zone Virginia, we're doing rankings. We're doing a bunch of really great content there. Virginia Preps, we're doing a bunch of great game recaps. More for 757 stuff, just because that's where I cover. And then DullesDistrict.com, we're going to be doing a lot of ODU stuff. Probably have a notebook up next Wednesday about, just the past week. A lot of great stuff going on in Virginia as far as recruiting goes and as far as, these student athletes at the high school level. And definitely Virginia Preps is a must follow for anyone in the state, I think. And then Prep Red Zone is always a good subscription to chip in with. And all the stuff at Dulles District is always, free to read. And it's a great time. It's a great time to be a resident of the state of Virginia. I don't care who you root for. High school football in Virginia is doing pretty well right now. And that's about it. I mean, it's a great time to be a Virginian.
I completely agree. Some of the best football happening, both on the high school level, even on the college level. I want to thank Reese again for joining me as well. Check out his content, follow him on Twitter, as well as connect with us, Fastlane, Ed Lane, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and me at TreyLyleVT. We'll have all your coverage for the high school and college games, because obviously we have JF football on 100.9 WIQ every Friday night, and that comes back this week as well. Thank you so much for Reese joining me, and thank you for checking out this special edition of the Fastlane.